Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry I can't be in class this evening so that we can do this in person, but I'm glad we have an opportunity that we can still work through some of the finer points of your essay in this medium. For this video, what I want to focus on is cause and effect writing. You know, these essays that you guys are planning for, where you're identifying a particular event or a particular site of prejudice and you're investigating how that prejudice is formed, that's really the designs for a cause and effect essay. So, this evening, what I want to talk to you about are some of the things we should know about cause and effect writing, and maybe touch on a few ways that you can apply them in these particular essays. So, let's go ahead and get started. You'll notice in the slideshow that I have below, it says cause and effect writing, but I want to start in a slightly different place. If we look at the Evergreen, I asked you all to do chapter 12 of the Evergreen, which deals with cause and effect writing. I think chapter 12 gives us a nice introduction to what cause and effect writing is. So let's take a look at that for a moment. And this is in the chapter introduction. The ability to think through causes and effect is a key to success in many college courses, jobs, and everyday situations. Daily, we puzzle over the causes of or reasons for events. That's important for us to consider. You know, whenever we think about causes, we're thinking about the reasons why something happens. Causes are the reasons why something happens. What caused one brother to drop out of school and another to succeed brilliantly? What causes Janine's asthma attacks? Why did the stock market plunge 300 points? All of those things deal with reasons. For many of you, when you all chose events or sites last time we were together, you chose an event and you asked yourself, well, how did prejudice enter into this situation? You, in effect, are focusing on the causes. What's important is that as you isolate those distant causes, it's really effective to think about each of those causes as a separate reason. A separate reason. And by outlining those different reasons that led to a particular event, that can actually give you a good outline for your essay. But some of you might want to take a slightly different approach and look at what your book has to say about effects. Effects are the results of a particular cause or causes. Does playing violent computer games affect a child's behavior? What are the effects of being a twin, of keeping a secret, of winning the lottery? Right? So sometimes we can look at that same event and maybe that event leads to a particular um, a particular effect, right? It leads to a particular result that in turn causes prejudice. So that's another way of looking at it, right? So let's take a look at what we know thus far. Whenever we do cause and effect writing, we're always analyzing why something happens, right? And I want to draw just a little illustration for you just so we can make sure we're all on one accord with this. Say, for example, it's supposed to be a circle, right? All right, say, for example, let's try and write that a little bit better. Undo. Let's say I touch a hot stove. Here's my event. Now, if I'm looking at this particular event, I touched a hot stove, it's easy for me to think, it's easy for me to think about how this event is a cause for something else. It's easy. I mean, when I think about it, if I touch a hot stove, what's going to happen? I get burned. Right? That's a one-to-one cause. One cause, one effect. Right? But I don't have to just look at the effects of a particular event. Right? That effect isn't the only end to the event, right? That event could actually be a result of something else. So I could take that same event, touch the hot stove, and I could look to see, well, what preceded the event? What came before? I was curious about the stove. Well, now this becomes interesting. The thing that was a cause here, I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I'm looking at what actually caused it, right? And when I look at it that way, I can see, oh, so here's the thing that led to me touching the hot stove. Well, what am I trying to illustrate here? The thing that I'm trying to illustrate, very simply, is that singular events, depending on how we look at it, can have causes and they also can have effects. One event isn't necessarily always the cause or always the effect. Oftentimes, when we think about cause and effect, we think about things in what's called a causal chain, and we'll think about that term a little bit later on. Causal chain is kind of like a pared down version of the butterfly effect, right? And that came up in class the other day, how one thing leads to the next thing, leads to the next thing, leads to the next thing. And that's also true in real life situations. The issue is in writing, when we choose an event, we also have to choose which direction we want to trace back, which direction we want to investigate. Do I want to focus on the results, or do I want to focus on the reasons? Okay? Just something for us to consider. So what do we know? Cause and effect analyzes why something happens. Sometimes one event has multiple causes. There are multiple reasons for a particular event, right? Multiple reasons, multiple causes. And sometimes there are events that have multiple effects. In fact, most things are like that. In the simple example that I gave a moment ago, here, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's one cause, one effect, one cause, one effect. But most things in life aren't like that. Most events have multiple results, and they're worthy of discussion. Most events have more than one thing that leads up to it. So those are worthy of consideration as well. When we think of events and we think about multiple causes, and this is going to be important for most of you. When we think of events that have multiple causes, usually there's something that we call the main cause. So it's going to be the factor that has the most impact on a particular event. Now, there are also contributory causes. These are causes that are important, but they're not as important as the main cause, right? They're important, but they're not as important, right? So that has to do with the influence that different causes have, right? But some causes aren't really categorized by their influence, they're categorized by their proximity to the event. They're not characterized by their influence, how important they are. They're categorized by their proximity to the event, how close they were to the event. And when we think about those kinds of things, those have slightly different designations. Immediate causes are causes that happen like right before the event happened. Right before the event happened. So one might say, well, one reason or one cause for Trump gaining momentum and ultimately winning the election was because of the FBI saying that they were going to investigate Hillary Clinton because of the email scandal that came out a week before the election. And people say that's a reason why she lost, right? That's an immediate cause because it was very close to the election. Remote causes are different. They might be just as important, but they've been marinating for a while. They're less obvious because it involves something in the past or far away, right? A remote cause. So somebody might say that a remote cause for Hillary Clinton losing the election was because of the scandals of her husband, Bill Clinton, when he was in office. Sure, that might be a reason why she lost, but it's a remote cause because it happened a long time ago. Some causes are immediate, some are remote. Whenever you talk about cause and effect, you have to talk about, well, what kind of cause is this? Is it a main cause or is it a contributory cause? Is it an immediate cause or is it a remote cause? Those are things that are going to be important to discuss. And like we illustrated before, all these things are part of a causal chain. That's what we were talking about when we talked about the butterfly effect. I'm just cleaning up our